In today's video, I'm excited to show you how I made this dot painted owl inspired by Hedwig from the Harry Potter series. Why am I making an owl for Harry Potter? I'm so very glad you asked. It's because it's Harry Potter's birthday at the end of July. How did you forget? You should mark it on your calendar. July 31st, Harry Potter's birthday. And we are making Hedwig his sidekick for his birthday. Come on, how perfect is this? And how cute is this owl? I mean, I know I say everything is cute, but he's cute. Look, he's so cute. Okay, listen. Grab all your stuff and let's get crafty.
This is Mary. Welcome to the IHC Craft Room. For materials, we'll begin with a 3.5-inch hand-poured art stone that I made from mortar, some matte varnish, acrylic paint in warm beige, white, bright yellow, ebony black, slate gray, and bright orange. For tools, we'll begin with my dotting tools as always. This super cute owl stencil that I got from Dollar Tree, a paint palette or paint pods, a paintbrush, a cup of water, a wet rag, some Q-tips, and toothpicks. Let's get started with the base coat. I'm using slate gray paint here, and I'm gonna give this stone 2 thin coats of paint, followed by, say it with me, 2 thin coats of varnish. That's right. Once that's nicely dry, it'll be time to use my chalk pencil to trace out this cute little owl. Let's get started outlining our friend Hedwig here. Something I always remind myself about when working with the chalk pencil is that it will most likely give me a bit of a hard time when it's time to erase my guidelines. So it's in my best interest to use a light hand. Everyone knows Harry Potter's bestie Hedwig is a snow white owl. So we're gonna use white paint and my 0.8mm yellow stylus to slowly dot around the outline. I want the dots to be roughly the same size, so I'm really keeping track of the amount of paint on my stylus. And I'm taking my time between each dot to make sure I don't rush and smear my dots accidentally. While I continue to place even-sized dots all the way around the outline of this owl, let's have a chat about achieving consistency in your dot size. So, how do you keep your dots equal in size? There are a few things that contribute to the size of your dot. Number 1 is how much paint is on your dotting tool. The more paint you have on your stylus, the more potential there is for a larger dot. I say potential because you can have a crap ton of paint on your stylus and still make a small dot with practice. Because the second thing that really impacts the size of your dot is the pressure and area of contact between your dotting tool and the surface you're dotting. If you smash that stylus full of paint flat down on the stone with even and strong pressure, you'll get a much bigger dot than if you just barely kiss the surface of the stone with your stylus, grazing the paint over it, creating a tiny dot. It's the difference between a whisper and a scream. You know what I mean? Right now, I'm doing a combination of both things to achieve these small equal dots. I'm moderating the amount of paint on my stylus by making sure to only take a bit of paint when I dip my dotting tool into the paint. And I'm also keeping the dots small and equal by being aware of how much paint is piling up on my dotting tool. Off camera, I'm using a damp cloth to wipe off the paint buildup every 3rd or 4th time I add paint to my stylus. On top of that, I'm being very careful about how much pressure I'm using to place my dot on the surface. The more pressure I use, the larger my dot will be. So keep that in mind. Now that we have Hedwig's outline all set, let's move on to her eyes. I really want the eyes to be the focal point of this design. Big, black, and soulful. I'm using a new silicone angled brush that I picked up at Dollarama, and I've never used it before, so I'm a little bit nervous. It was the perfect size though, and it did a great job. I'm going to use one of my dotting tools to help round out the edges and make sure I have the perfect shape so Hedwig has clear vision while delivering her messages around England. Next, I'm going to use some bright orange paint and the same 0.8mm yellow stylus to outline Hedwig's beak. But wait, for some reason, this just looks wrong to me. So I looked up some images online and yeah, Hedwig's beak isn't orange. It should be black, just like her talons. Oh man, looks like my trusty Q-tips will be needed here. While I let that spot dry, I'm going to move on to her feet using some white paint and the same dotting tool. I'll go ahead and draw a little beak back in place, and then using some black paint this time, I'll outline her beak and then move on to adding some black talons to her feet too. And lastly, some black accent dots to her wings. Next, we're going to outline her eyes using bright yellow paint and the 1mm blue stylus. I want these dots to really stand out to mimic the glowing yellow eyes of a beautiful owl. Okay, we are now ready to start filling in the center of our design. I'm going to use some white paint and the 1mm blue stylus, but I'm using the top side that's actually 1.25 millimeters in size. I'm going to go ahead and slowly start filling in each section by filling my dotting tool with paint, and then walking the dots until my paint is gone. This gives me a bunch of different sized dots to work with. I'm making sure to leave a noticeable amount of space between each dot so that I don't accidentally mash two dots together. I'll let this all dry a bit and come back later to put in some super tiny dots to fill in each color. For now though, I can just tell Hedwig is not impressed by how short her nails are. Girl, I feel you. So I'm gonna go ahead and add another black dot to each talon to make them nails as long as Aragog's legs, okay? Yeah, no, that would be horrifying, so not that long. Next, I'll go and fill in her beak. And then it'll be time to start working on the background. We use slate gray paint for base coat, so I'm gonna use some of that and mix in some black paint to get a darker gray color. And then using the 3mm green stylus, I'm gonna go ahead and fill my dotting tool with paint and just dot around until I run out of paint and keep going. Again, leaving space in between so that I don't accidentally cause a blob to happen. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing, except this time I'll add even more black paint to the equation to get an even darker gray color for some added texture and interest in our background. You'll notice I'm doing this one side at a time, and that's because this paint is just a touch runny for my taste, so I've slightly elevated the base of my rock on one side to encourage gravity to knock it off, thanks. Once that side has dried a little and I can trust the dots not to warp, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side and then let it dry really well overnight before I erase all my guidelines and start focusing on adding in all the little micro dots that'll really make this owl stand out. Something I want to point out about erasing guidelines is that even though this is a chalk pencil, I find a regular eraser does a really good job removing the lines as opposed to using, say, a moist Q-tip or something like that. Now that my paint is dry and guidelines have been erased, I'm going to use the 0.8mm yellow stylus again and some white paint to get back into each area of the owl and pop some tiny little dots into any open spaces I see. I really want the white to dominate and the slate gray background to fade back into, well, the background. To fill in Hedwig's tummy and around her face, I mixed a color using slate gray, white, and warm beige paint. And I'll continue using the same dotting tool to fill in everything. Once I'm happy with Hedwig's body, there'll be one last step before we seal this little cutie with some varnish and mail it off to Harry Potter. I'm going to mix up some super dark gray paint and add one little center black pupil using my 3mm green stylus to each of these beautiful eyes. And then Hedwig will be ready to fly.
So what do you think? She came out super cute, right? I bet you if Harry Potter was a real person, he'd be so happy to get this as a gift. I mean, I'm just saying, I think he would. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about dot painting, check out this video. And if you want to see another Harry Potter based craft, I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to? Check out this video instead. And don't forget to subscribe so that we can continue to get crafty together. Toodaloo!